Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is where I get to chat with people I've connected with over the years in the world of arts and entertainment. And today I'm so happy to have with me multiple award winning Indigenous artist, Crystal Shawanda. Welcome to the show, Crystal.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's so nice to see you. Last time we spoke on the phone, and it's been a while since you've had a new album. I think it's now 2022 was the last one.
I think so. Midnight Blues. I think
Yeah.
that's when we release that. Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I know things can take a while when you're in the studio and things happen and picking songs and so on. But this new one, wow, it's like 12 really awesome songs. And I don't recall you being that much of a cover artist in the past, but you've got some interesting covers on this one. I mean, Tom Petty, Honeybee. Well, that kind of makes sense, you know.
Right.
Sun House, Preaching Blues. Again, that makes sense.
Yes.
But what really caught me off guard was there's a Black Sabbath cover. How did that happen?
I grew up in a house, fortunately, where everybody listened to all styles of music. There wasn't just one genre. In our home, it was just good music and bad music. So my parents listened to old country music like Hank Williams and Loretta Lynn and Waylon Jennings. And then my oldest brother listened to blues music like Muddy Waters and B.B. King. And then my other brother listened to like Black Sabbath and AC/DC and stuff like that. And so I heard a lot of Black Sabbath when I was a kid, and the song "Changes" was always one of my favorites. I've always loved Ozzy as a vocalist, one of my favorite vocalists, and then this song became some really good medicine for me. I listened to a lot after the passing of a longtime fan of mine. I knew her since she was a little girl. She grew up just down the road from me, and she would come to our shows and to our meet and greets, and she would get me to sign a picture, a shirt, her hat and her hand, and then she'd get a hug from both me and D Wayne, and then she'd go to the back of the line so she could do it all over again. And she would do that like 5 times at every meet and greet. And then the last couple years of her life, she stopped coming around, and I knew something was wrong. And she had a big, beautiful heart, and she was very kind, and a lot of people took advantage of that. And she just so desperately wanted to fit in that she fell into addiction, and then she ended up overdosing. And so it was just so shocking and so surreal. And so I listened to the song a lot, and it helped me. And so I decided to record it as a tribute to her, because I wanted her spirit to know that she mattered and that she was here, and that we really did love her and care about her. Because as she grew up, into her 20s, she went from being a fan to becoming a friend, and even visit me in Nashville at one time in my home. So yeah, it was just a way of us showing that we loved her.
Yeah, yeah, that's I feel like in order to sing the blues, you have to have the blues. And there's a lot of people
Yes.
out there that are really talented and they hit all the right notes, but you're somebody who's I feel you've lived the blues, and you quoted recently as saying that there's a lot of life on this record. The good, the bad, and the redemption, and the healing, and that life is not always pretty. You know,
Mhm.
um, it's true. I lost my only son in September 2007, just after
Oh,
he
I'm so
turned
sorry.
12. And before that happened, I had been known as a pretty good guitar player and a pretty good singer, but I don't think I was ever considered by anybody to be anywhere near great. Not that I am now, but I feel like when I lost my son, I found my soul. And
Mm,
I've been up to Wikwemekong. I did some shows with Mason Dixon Line Band, and I know
oh
you know
yeah.
Roger Daybutch.
Yes.
And I understand he had a little bit of a hand in getting you started at some point. Um, so we thank him for that.
Hmm.
And I always had some good times up in Wikwemekong, but I know that people don't have it easy up there. And your childhood, as much as your house was filled with love and with music, there had to be some hard times that contribute to the soul that you go out there with.
Yes, absolutely. I grew up in a family and a community that was absolutely still trying to heal from intergenerational trauma. I come from a family of residential school survivors. I myself am of the last generation of Indian day school survivors. And, I was very aware of the sadness and grief in my family and community. By the time I was 10 years old, I'd been to so many funerals, and the majority of them were either alcohol related deaths or suicides. So, being around that sadness, it actually create gave me early onset of depression. I was diagnosed with depression when I was like 11 years old. And so my way of dealing with it was music, and my way of trying to understand it was music. I loved sad songs. I was always listening to them. They were always my favorites. And in these stories that I would hear, in the music, it kind of helped me understand what was happening to my family, and watching my parents work really hard to heal and break those cycles, those painful cycles, and work really hard to give me and my brothers a different kind of life, and to work really hard to remove the trauma from our lives, was inspiring. And music was my thing. That was the thing that kept me out of trouble. It was the thing that kept me on a straight and narrow path for the most part. and but and for sure, I think all that pain, I was like this little empath. I was always absorbing everything around me, and so I would carry it. And so my mom would always say I was like a very old soul, and because I was so aware of it. And so my only way of releasing it so I wouldn't carry it around was to sing. And so when I would sing along with these sad songs, I was letting it go and releasing it into the universe. And it's how I deal with life still today.
I've been saying for years that music is the doctor, but it's a double-edged sword sometimes, isn't it? I mean, we all know of artists who, just out of the pressure from the business and so on, ended up with some pretty bad habits that really affected their health in a bad way. So I know that there were influences around you, and where you grew up and so on. And I grew up in North Bay, but in like a really poor part of town. And
Right.
you know, um, I'm not going to say that I could ever compare my experiences to those that your people have suffered over the years. But I was in a similar situation. The music really saved me.
Right.
And at the same time, I kind of had to get away from certain circumstances to survive it, but
Absolutely. Well, I think everybody has their own version of intergenerational trauma. It's not exclusive to one group of people. I think, especially, when you look at all these, because I grew up with a lot of different friends from different, like I had friends who were Irish and Scottish and Polish and Ukrainian, and they all grew up with like the more I would learn about their families and why we had similar interests when it came to sometimes getting into trouble. It was like we had very similar childhoods in that sense. Growing up, sometimes they had come from families who are also dealing with alcoholism. So it's not exclusive to one group. So definitely.
yeah, yeah. And getting back to the music now, um, you were nominated this year for Juno for Album of the Year for the Sing Pretty Blues. And once again, there's some really awesome music on this. Um, Songs like "Stop Funking Me Around." Tell me about that one.
Yeah, Stop Funking Me Around. That was a song we wrote with Sonny Tackett, who's one of my favorite songwriters. I call him a hillbilly poet. He's from the hills of Kentucky, but now he lives in the hills of Tennessee, East Tennessee. But he's been a singer-songwriter his whole life, and um I love his style and the melodies that he comes up with, and he knows my vocal styling. So him and Dwayne, when they get together on this was their idea that they started, and then they brought it to me. I was like, yes, this is awesome. But they know how to write for my vocals and how to bring out the best parts of my voice. And it was just a fun one. We wanted to do a fun song, a little bit sassy, and it was very much inspired by conversations I've had with friends who are struggling in the dating world. And it's just this idea of, are we going to do this or not? Quit wasting my time. And a lot of people are really reacting to the song, so I think it speaks a lot of truth.
That's interesting, like dating life was always a struggle,
Right.
and then COVID came along.
Yeah. And
Wow.
then you bring in internet dating, and it's like, oh dear.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And you look 30 years older than you do in your picture. What's
Oh,
going on?
oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I've had friends who are dating, try dating a guy and they're feeling hopeful, and then they find out he's also dating four other girls.
Yeah.
And
No
it's like,
kidding.
yeah, that's very unfortunate. Yeah.
They're not musicians, were they? These
I
guys.
don't think so.
Oh man. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, um, once again, you are nominated for a Juno, but you've already won a Juno at least once. And you've
Twice.
twice, okay, and you're also
Yes.
a CCMA award winner. You were the
Yes.
first Indigenous artist to be number one on a media-based chart. You were the first Indigenous artist to be top 20 on the Billboard country charts
Yes.
and top 10 on the Billboard blues charts. So, man, you've come a long way and you've got a long way to go. But this is really impressive, and I know that you were signed originally, and you did the whole I'm going down to Nashville and I'm gonna carry my banner and I'm gonna get a record deal and the world is gonna be great. And that's not always the way it works out. I know I watched a bit of an interview with John Hall from Hall and Oates, and I've never been a big fan of the business side of the music business. He called it like the mafia, like organized crime almost. And I know that you had some interesting experiences. I know that was it RCA that you
Yes.
and they said something about your um, they don't normally deal with First Nations people, something to that effect. They were
Actually,
trying to
actually,
whitewash you in some way.
um, actually, the first time, I moved to Nashville the first time when I was 16. And, I would go knocking on doors that I had no right to be knocking on. I was too naive to be scared. I was just so excited to be here in Nashville. And so I had a chance meeting with a very famous executive who also produced some of my favorite country albums. And I had an opportunity to play some songs for him, and he was like, "Oh, wow, that was amazing, but Native Americans and country music, I don't think it quite matches up. I don't think the country music fans are ready for you or they would accept you, and I wouldn't even know how to market you." And I was 17 years old and I tried to appear more mature than I actually was. So I was like, "Thank you for your time, sir." And then I walked out and tried to go back into my routine of playing at honky tonks and songwriting clubs and busking on street corners. But I don't know, one day I woke up after a couple months and I said, I think I'm just going to go home, because if I can't sing country music, then what am I doing here? I'm wasting my time. And then I gave up and went home and kind of went on a downward spiral and started drinking a lot. But no matter what, I ended up back on a stage, back in front of a guitar, back in front of a microphone. And so I came back to Nashville again and I said, this time it's not for a record deal. This time it's because I was born to sing and I'm not good at anything else. So I got to be a singer. This is my life. I got to build it. And I came back and then I ended up signing with RCA Records. And it was amazing. They made all my dreams come true. And getting to work with the best of the best. I got to work with Scott Hendricks. He was my producer, and again, he was one of my favorite producers who produced some of my favorite albums. Another one of my favorite producers. And I was working with Doc McGee. He was my manager. Doc McGee has worked with everyone from Kiss to Bon Jovi to Diana Ross and James Brown. And I think I was so excited for this opportunity, and I so wanted to make them all proud that along the way I lost my voice. I forgot who I was as an artist. I became a bit of a yes person, right? And then that's when I decided to part ways and started my own record company called New Sun Music. And I just, I had offers from other record companies in America and in Canada, but I needed time where I could have the creative freedom to experiment and figure out and remember who I am, what my voice is, and what do I really want to sing. And that's when I kept creating blues music. And then I said to my husband, well, what do we do with these songs? Let's release a blues album. I mean, isn't that why we started a record company, so we could do whatever we want to do? And so we released the blues album, my first one, and it was like letting a bird out of a cage. It was like all of a sudden I knew who I was. This is who I am. I'm a blues singer. And then a couple albums later, I was approached by True North Records, and they loved my music and they wanted to work with me. And to be honest, I was kind of tired of wearing so many hats. And so I signed with True North Records, but I kept my company going on the side to work with other artists. And then just before we were about to release this album, the head of True North Records, Jeff Kulik, decided to retire. And and he has every right to retire. So, but it left me with like, I have this finished product, and what am I gonna do with this? So I went back onto my own label with this new album, and and that was kind of the delay with the release of this album. And so we released it. So now I'm back to New Sun Music.
Yeah, and True North, they were around for a long, long time. I guess he was well at retirement age by now.
Absolutely. He had an amazing team and they did incredible work. And I learned a lot from them while I was with them. They released three of my albums. And because of them, I won my first Juno Award for Blues Album of the Year. So it was very, I was disappointed that he decided to retire, but I was very grateful for the time that we had together. And because of what I learned while I was working with True North Records, we were able to come back to New Sun Music with what we learned. And now I think it's made us stronger as a record company because now we know the lay of the land just a little bit better.
Very cool. Yeah, there's nothing like getting your hands dirty and getting right in there and taking care of business. Speaking of taking care of business, Sing Pretty Blues, the song. I watched the video, and your little daughter is so cute. And you know what? I think we should maybe take a minute and just give people a sneak peek of the video for Sing Pretty Blues. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Some just don't get me. This is my church, this is my truth. It don't leave me empty. I got a right to preach these blues. No, I don't sing pretty, but I sing every word straight to you. Oh, yeah. Sing pretty, ooh, sing pretty, sing pretty, ooh, sing pretty, sing pretty, sing pretty. Sing pretty, ooh, sing pretty, sing pretty, sing pretty, sing pretty, ooh, sing pretty, sing pretty, sing pretty, sing pretty, ooh, sing pretty. Ooh, sing pretty, sing pretty, sing pretty, sing pretty, sing pretty, ooh, sing
Wow, that is something else, man. And your little daughter, holy cow, and she's singing backup. with you. That's great. I mean, I remember talking to you a few years ago, and you said that you bring her to all your shows, and I understand you also homeschool her. Like she's joined at the hip to you. I'm surprised she's not sitting on your lap right now, but I mean, how did was she always just singing along backstage? Like, cause I mean, she's singing on key, and she looks like she's a little dancer, and right on. Like, oh,
Yeah, she's just, she's grown up around it. She's always, like you said, she's always there with me. Even when me and my husband are writing songs, she's always sitting like right there. So she knows how it goes. She absorbs it all. And my dad used to be our nanny and he would watch her backstage. And then as soon as she started to be able to walk, my dad would say she would get up and grab his hand and she would follow the sound to the stage and she would go side stage and they'd be at the side while we were playing and people couldn't see them, but they would be there. And my dad said that she would like bounce. And he said, when you flip your hair, she flips her hair. And he would tell me about it, right? And he finally said, at some point you're gonna have to let her on that stage because that's where she wants to be. So the first time she got up to sing, she was 2 years old. It was over at the Bush Home there in Ontario, and she got up and she just loved it. And from that moment on, we started bringing her on stage. It started off just like as a little novelty where she would come and sing a part on a song with me, and now it's grown. Now she's 8 years old and she stands on stage with us for the whole show. She sings and plays tambourine. Sometimes she has a little hand drum she beats on, and she sings two songs in the show by herself. And and she's not just there because she's our kid. She really can sing. She has a great tone to her voice. I've never heard her sing out of tune ever. She's always in perfect key. Doesn't matter what the song is. And when we sing backgrounds together in the studio, she actually, our tone of our voice is like almost similar. Like you almost can't hear where my voice ends and her voice begins. So it's quite interesting to watch. Like she can, at 8 years old, she understands and knows how to do things that I didn't know till I was like 11 years old. So I'm impressed every day, and every show is a surprise. Like we don't tell her what to do or how to dance or anything. I just always say before every show, just be Jaja and have fun because that's the most important thing. And then we just let her be herself. And it's and now she's in dance classes. She's in three different dance classes here in Nashville at a dance academy. And it's just so she can have some socialization. And people are like, do you dance, mom, now? And I'm like, no, she doesn't do competition, she just does recitals. But it's fun. I'm having a blast watching her bloom and grow.
no doubt. She certainly comes by it honestly, man. Like, but to 8 years old and at that, it just blows me away, man. I'll tell you.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I mean, I know that when I was a little kid, I mean, I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. I'm a little bit older than you are, but um, I was really into the music, but I don't think I had any, you know, I didn't have any control over whatever was in me back then,
Right.
and I mean, I can remember the first time I felt like I was worth listening to was my grade 8 graduation. I got to play with the choir, and I sang Four Strong Winds at 13 years old
Yes.
in front of the rest of my school for grade 8 graduation. But
Right.
before that, I don't, I mean, this is like just awesome that you talk about being 11 years old and your daughter 8 years old. It's just in you and in your family blood. No kidding. Wow.
For sure. It's quite, when I watch her, sometimes my mom will say to me, that's how you were when you were a little kid. And so it's kind of cool to see it from that perspective.
So I know that you've got a lot going on. You're coming back to Canada real soon. I know there's at
Yes.
least one show, Port Elgin, Kincardine area.
Yes. Yes,
Tell
that's right.
tell us about that.
For sure, we're going to be playing at the Loft 1020, and the Bobby Scongag band will be opening up for us, and the proceeds will be going towards the Big Brothers Big Sisters Bruce South Bruce North Huron chapter. So we're really excited about that. This area, this part of Ontario, I get so much amazing support. We do shows there, and we do a lot of blues in schools presentations. And I've been very fortunate to connect with a lot of the students and a lot of different schools. And it's something we really enjoy. We give a history of blues music. And yeah, and I've got my schedule is just filling up like crazy for the spring and summer. We're getting ready to do some show announcements very soon. I'm just, letting the ink dry on the contracts that we're signing and making sure, the venues are okay with me announcing, because sometimes they like to announce first. And so I'm giving everybody a chance to do that. But we're going to be very busy. We're across Canada all summer, and in some shows in America. So we can't wait to see everybody.
And everybody can't wait to see you, I'm sure. Yeah. This has been great. I know you've got a lot to do, and you got to get back to your beautiful little daughter and so on. I don't want to take up all of your day, but I do want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this with me once again. And until next time, cheers.
Thank you so much, Tommy. It's great chatting with you.
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including recording, editing, guest acquisition, etc. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn, all rights reserved. If you enjoy the show and you'd like to help us keep it going, why don't you click on the Buy Me a Coffee link in the show notes. Hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. We really appreciate it. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. And until next time, cheers.